And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the Talk podcast. I'm your host, Harrison Marino, alongside me co-host Dan Kiley. It's been 2 weeks. It's been a long time. It feels like we haven't been on in a month, even though it's been 2 weeks. Dan had the flu, and then I've got a cold that I've been dealing with for the last few days. Finally started to free up on me. Started to feel a lot better yesterday, but I'm still going to have the sniffles every once in a while, I'm sure of it, just because that's how it rolls. Dan, how are you feeling? How are you sounding? Do you sound like a bag of concrete still, or?
No, I sound much better. And yes, so I had strep throat, which was killing the voice, and I had the flu, which was killing me. So there was no possible way we were doing a show last Tuesday. I apologize. That's on me. But it was my turn to get sick, and boy, did I pull it off.
Hey, he had a good week. Georgia won. Georgia blew out Ole Miss. And then we come back this week and Georgia blows out Tennessee. So, hey, good old Rocky Top back at it again. Dan, we'll get to Tennessee in a minute. We have an abbreviated show for you today. Got some time commitments coming up on us. We're going to try to roll through this. So apologize if we go a little fast. Anyways, never mind Matt. It is still a loaded show. Dan, hot topic number one. What is a national storyline that isn't one that should be?
All right, so this one's going to surprise you a little bit, and this is where I'm coming with this. Okay, so at the beginning of the year, the national storyline was the Dion at Colorado, making things happen out of Colorado, right? And then obviously they get into the meat of their schedule and they lose games. And now all of a sudden, Dion's this terrible coach, it's a bad football team. You know, this is the whole narrative. So they are not a topic of conversation anymore. Dion is not on the front page anymore. But if we go back to the preseason before any of the games were started, Deion Sanders and that team, everybody was like, I can't find a single win or maybe one win on that schedule. They're going to be terrible. They're going to be awful. They're going to be just atrocious. Well, then they get off to a 3 or 4 win start. And, they are the hot topic for everybody. They are the conversation piece for everybody. Deion's amazing, blah, 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 all this stuff. Well, I think the truth is that Deion has actually done a really good job with this football team. They had 86 new players on this football team. They completely turned over the roster. They have completely recreated the culture. Colorado has become one of the most watchable teams in America. Have they lost games? Yes. Have they gotten their asses kicked? Yes. Has it shown up that they are not 100% a team ready to compete? 100% yes. All of those things are true. But at the same time, Deion is doing a good job. And he has made that team a much more enjoyable product, a marketable product. So by doing all of that, he is a success story. He has done a great job. So a national storyline that isn't one anymore that should be is the fact that Deion is actually doing a good job. Just because he's not 10-1 or 10-2 or whatever the case may be at the end of the year doesn't mean he's a failure. Go back to the beginning. They said maybe 1 win. He's at 4. And he's been competitive in other games, and I mean he's taking his lumps too. But that's my storyline that should be still a storyline is that Deion's actually doing a good job.
I'm going to channel my inner LaShawn McCoy Dan with this one.
All right. I have no idea where you're going with this.
Lincoln Riley and his coaching job at USC has been complete ass, as LaShawn McCoy once said. To quote him exactly, ass. He is a 7-5 football team, I think USC is. Like, we are talking, I don't want to compare him to.
Harrison, your mic is muted. Sorry.
Terrific. It's let's see. And it's because the mic isn't working.
You're about to go on a roll, buddy. I heard it coming.
Dan, take over for a minute. I'm trying to sort out this mic situation.
All right, I'm going to let him get back to his in just 1 second, but I'm going to move on to the next hot topic, and then because I have a feeling, well, you know what, I can't do that. I absolutely can't do that because I'm going to get into it. But yeah, I hear where you're coming with this Lincoln Riley, and I agree with you. So Harrison, if your microphone is working, jump back on.
Let's see.
Yeah.
Is it clear yet?
Yep. I want you to get yours out before I get mine out. Go ahead.
Dan, he's a 7-5 football team. 7-5. It is the worst season that Lincoln Riley's ever had as a coach. Mind you, he is the best quarterback potentially the last 10 years, prospect-wise. Caleb Williams is just a generational talent at quarterback. He has some generational talent, or not generational talents. He has good talent on offense, really good talent. Probably the weakness of their offense is their offensive line, but they've been able to win without it for the most part. They have, I believe it's Zachariah Branch, who is a true freshman stud. I think his first play in college football was like an 80-yard kickoff return, if I remember correctly, to start the year. Lincoln Riley himself, great offensive mind, probably the best offensive coordinator, best offensive minded head coach in college football today, in my opinion. But he's 7-5. And what he's done for the last 3 or 4 years is he's let average defense, below average, we'll go out on a limb and say below average defense with a below average coordinator sit there, keep his job when the results don't ever get better. The only time you really get good results was when you were playing non-Power 5 football teams. Well, duh, you're much better than them. You're going to out-talent them, even if you're at USC, who doesn't really have the talent, I don't think, on both sides of the ball, like Oklahoma had in his final few years there. But he lets him stay around here because he thinks he can win college football by outscoring folks all the time. Every single game, he thinks he's going to do it, Dan. He thinks he's going to win every single shootout because he has the best quarterback in college football, and he has, top 3, top 5 receiving courts in college football, and he's 7-5. And we're talking about USC, a blue blood in college football. One of the, supposedly, I wasn't alive. I was alive for their last good days, but I'll have to ask Dan about what they did before I was alive. But I'm sure Dan would tell you the same thing. This is a premier program. There's not a coach in the country that doesn't have a Power 5 football job right now that wouldn't want the USC job because it is just so attractive. You're in Hollywood. Hell, you have Snoop Dogg and Will Ferrell that will come to your game, sitting on your sidelines when you're good. You're in California, a state that is honestly growing and producing top talent. You let Bryce Young go all the way to the East Coast of Alabama and almost win a national championship his 2 years there as a starting quarterback. You let him walk away. Leave CeeDee Lamb was from California. All these guys, a lot of great talent. Brock Bowers, potentially, arguably, the greatest player in college football right now, leave your state. And you're 7-5. And there's not a whiff about him being on the hot seat, Dan. He is doing a worse job than his predecessor, Clay Helton. And they wanted Clay Helton gone from the moment they lost a game those 2 years ago. Like, this is horrendous. He's the portal king, and he's 7-5, man.
He's terrible. And that's going to lead us right to our next top topic, which is now that we're into the last week of the season, which team has either exceeded your expectations or failed to meet them? And I'm just going to go with USC. I have never seen a team do less with more than I've watched USC. They are poorly coached, to your point. You already made that quite clear. But Caleb Williams, I have a lot of concerns about Caleb Williams. You cannot have a quarterback be the face of your franchise, the leader of your organization, who is that emotional, who is that in his feelings. He's painting his fingernails. He's like putting messages all over his body. He's crying on the sidelines, crying with his mother after a regular season loss. It's absolutely absurd to me that you have a generational quarterback like that who is that out of whack. I don't get it. And I think Caleb Williams, at least for me, and at least the people that I listen to on the radio as well, he has raised a lot of questions about whether you can take him seriously enough to take him with the number 1 overall pick. I think this would be a difficult year with the quarterback because you got some other guys like Drake May has done nothing to impress me this year, and he was supposed to be. I mean, look at the guys that are having great years this year, and none of them are projected to be high draft picks. And I think that's why the quarterback position is so bad in the NFL. It's because you just don't know anymore. But for my second hot topic, the team that did not meet my expectations, we had USC. They are an absolute dumpster fire. And listen, California has produced NFL talent at or above the rest of the level of the rest of the nation every single year in existence. So it's not a surprise that California is pumping out NFL players all over the place. The problem is they don't have a place to go out on the West Coast because USC is a dumpster fire.
And UCLA for that matter. Although Chip Kelly, excuse me, just beat what's supposed to be the premier program out there. And I guess you could say, yeah, USC lost to a basketball school, although UCLA hasn't been a basketball school since John Wooden was there. It's been a long time. But yeah, Dan, it's USC. You're right. I don't think there's another answer for this. People maybe will come out here and say Colorado, even though Colorado was a 2-win football team, 1-win football team last year. Get out of here with that. It's USC. By God, it's USC. And I can't really add anything to it because I think you hit the nail on the head here. Poor coaching. You have a loaded roster. Loaded roster. If Kirby Smart if you say, okay, Kirby, you can take any player in this football team, just one, he would probably have to write. He would have to. It would take a while because there's so many people that people would want off this roster, and they're winning 50-49 against California. 50-49 against a team that is 5-6. Whew. And Utah's a good school. Don't get me wrong. Utah has done a good job, has built a great program, but there's no way in hell that at USC, with the amount of talent, with the best quarterback the NFL draft has probably ever seen in the last 5 years, very least, you should be losing to Utah, who you just out-talent, out of the wazoo. You won 48-41 against Colorado. 7 points against a team that has, 4 wins this year? And yeah, Shedeur Sanders, baller. Travis Hunter, baller. They got some studs over there that are going to be good for years to come. Not saying that Colorado is going to be cream of the crop Pac-12 anytime soon. They may be, but we'll have to wait and see on that one. But yeah, it's USC. You're dang right, it's USC. The other one for me, Dan, it's going to be a low blow here, Dan. I'm sorry. It's going to be a low blow. But what is going on at Tennessee, man? What are we doing here? You're supposed to be second in the SEC. You're supposed to be the team right behind Georgia that is pushing Georgia for a spot in the SEC East in the SEC title game. And you're out here, I believe they're 3 losses now? And they don't have any semblance of an offense. I was told that Josh Heupel should be put in the same breath as Lincoln Riley, Ryan Day, all these great offense coaches, because it's an offense that's hard to stop. Well, Kirby Smart shut it down 3 years in a row now. No problem. And they just, to me, Dan, it doesn't look like they're going anywhere. You're not recruiting in the top 5 and the top 8 to, actually compete for championships. You may pull an upset every other year against Alabama or every other year against Georgia, but you're not going to consistently compete for anything when you're not recruiting at a premier level. And you're at Tennessee. You're supposed to be recruiting at a premier level. I know Jeremy Pruitt lost you a lot of players, had you a lot of players transfer out of that program when he got fired, but he was recruiting at a premier level. Obviously, he was cheating, but heck, everybody's cheating these days in recruiting. So there's no excuse to me why Tennessee should be 3rd in the SEC East behind a Mizzou team that has, just absolutely blew them out of the water. And credit to Mizzou. Credit to Eli Drinkwitz. Dan, we came on here weeks ago talking about Mizzou, and we said one thing about Elijah Drinkwitz. We said if he's going to pull a 5-star in every recruiting class or every other recruiting class, Mizzou needs to hold on to him. Because obviously it's going to those guys are going to stack up. You're Luther Burden, the guy they got this year in this coming recruiting class. Those guys will stack and stack and stack, and maybe every 3 or 4 years, you're going to have a really good football team. So Tennessee's another one for me. If you want to touch on A&M, you can, because they're another proverbial low-hanging fruit at this point.
I had no expectations for A&M. Penn State, this one got thrown out here. That's a good one, and I think this is I think this is on repeat, right? I think this is one that is going to hit that meter year in and year out. And I like James Franklin as a coach. I don't really know where the disconnect is, but they just can't win the games that they have to win. They win the layups, of course, but they're not winning, and they're not really even competing so much in the games that are really important. And with Penn State, Ohio State, and Michigan, it's basically a 3-game or a 2-game schedule for each one of them. So, that is a disappointment. I thought for sure that they'd be able to knock one of the 2 off this year, and that's not the case. So, I'll give you some credit for your Penn State recommendation. I don't think you're wrong at all. But let's get on to the national obsession, Harrison.
Absolutely. really good at national obsession this week. It's going to be probably a national obsession heading into next week as well. A lot of talk around a scenario of Georgia not getting in the playoffs. Obviously, for me, any talk of Georgia not being in the playoffs has to center around them losing, which just coincides with the fact that Bama is back, baby. Dan, give us the bit.
Bama's back, baby.
Yeah, it's just the conversation that everyone's having, and I'm gonna say it, Dan. I'm a little guilty of the scenario playing. I've been thinking of scenarios. I have scenarios running through my head constantly when talking about the playoffs. And by God, am I gonna miss this next year? It's not gonna be fun next year. When you're talking about, oh yeah, which 2-loss team is gonna lose a third game, so they're number 12 seed in the playoffs, man. Oh man. Dan, I mean, what do you make of this? Because Bama's gotten hot. Bama's gotten better. They look like a much better football team compared to where they were in week 2, which is to be expected.
Well, it's just that it's the new thing, right? It's what drives attention, and they know that when they say that they're going to aggravate a lot of people, right? That they can come up with scenarios where all of these teams can make it, but they find the one scenario where Georgia doesn't make it. Now, listen, is there a chance that Georgia loses to Alabama? Absolutely, there's a chance. Alabama's a fantastic football team. They're much better than they were to start the season. Is it possible? I get it, 100%. But I mean, and this is one of those seasons where people have figured the scheduling out to where they can schedule their way into the championship game. Now, you're going to have to win a game or two. Florida State had to win a game or two, and they were able to do that. Florida State is a very bad football team. They would get absolutely murdered by Georgia or Alabama or Michigan or Ohio State. Any one of those four would absolutely wipe the floor of Florida State. 100%. No doubt in my mind. Oregon is a very good football team. I don't think Texas is a very good football team. I think they played a very good game against an Alabama team that hadn't figured it out yet. I mean, we know who the best teams are, and there is a very real scenario where Georgia doesn't get in if they were to lose. And do I think that's right? I don't think that's right at all. But that is the new media obsession, national obsession, is coming up with scenarios on how you can keep Georgia out. And listen, at the end of the day, that would be a real shame for, especially if it was a really close loss in the SEC championship game, to prevent a team from having an opportunity to three-peat by losing one football game where, the other team had already lost a football game and they get to go. And I get it. Heads up. I get all that stuff. It's just, they always say lose early, don't lose late. I think, Georgia, it's one of those situations where you just take care of business. You don't have to worry about anything. I got that part of it, but it's getting on my nerves. It really is. It's like the first thing they want to go to is that Georgia's going to lose. Georgia's going to lose. Georgia's going to lose. And saying that we don't know anything about Georgia. So I'm a little bit agitated by the national obsession right now, but it's not going to go anywhere, and it's only going to get louder.
Yeah. To me, what it keeps going back to, and what I think it's funny, when we talk about the playoffs all the time here and the selection committee, if Georgia does lose, say they do, they're going to be put with a headache. That they're going to have to decide, okay, in 10 years, what are they going to say about our decision? Because you have an SEC champion potentially in this scenario, SEC champion Alabama. Let's say Texas wins the Big 12 and they went out. You have a Big 12 champion in Texas who beat Alabama in week 2. And you say head-to-head matters. And so far you've shown that you're going to rank head-to-head over anything. That's the big thing for you, over strength of schedule, over everything else, over strength of schedule remaining. But are you really going to keep the SEC out in this scenario? Like, what's the deal here? If it's head-to-head, if head-to-head means more than anything, then you're going to put Texas in a one-loss Texas who won the Big 12 championship over Alabama. But, yeah, I mean, in that scenario, it seems like it's chaos, because then you just totally eliminate the SEC unless somebody else loses. To me, Dan, I've looked at this and I've thought about it.
So in your scenario, you have what, Ohio State, Florida State, Texas, and Washington? Is that who you have?
Yeah, or the winner of the Pac-12. Maybe it's Oregon. Maybe Oregon wins the Pac-12. I think Oregon would get in if they win the Pac-12.
I don't think a one-loss Oregon gets in over a one-loss Alabama.
Maybe not, and yeah, maybe Washington has to win out for this to happen. Now I don't. So here's my thing, Dan.
See
There's two things
that
here.
would be you talk about creating clicks and headlines and generating buzz. You eliminate the SEC from the Final Four. Oh hell! Oh hell! Oh
Yeah,
hell!
we would have some great press conference clips from Kirby and Nick Saban. I'm sure of it. To me, what I see playing out is I think Michigan's a fraud. I
Yes.
watched them against Maryland. I watched them against Penn State. They're not any different from what they were 2 years ago when Georgia put them in the wood chipper and absolutely slaughtered them out behind the shed. They're no different. Everybody plays up J.J. McCarthy as the savior of Michigan football, the guy that's going to lead them to the championship. He has some legs. He has a much better arm than Cam McNamara, but their offense isn't changed at all. He threw it. I don't think he threw once in the second half. Is that the
He
stat
didn't.
against Penn State?
Yeah,
He didn't throw
zero
once.
passes.
And I get
Zero
it.
passes.
I'll give you credit that you just dominate, completely manhandled that Penn State football team, a program that's supposed to be really good, a program that's, one of your two biggest games of the year. We'll give you credit for that. But if Georgia went out there and did it in 2019, they did it kind of similar against Kentucky. I bet you if you go on Twitter, everybody's slamming Kirby Smart for not having an offense. Slamming them. So to me, I think Michigan's going to lose the game. I think Ohio State is the better football team. I think they're more well-rounded. They're going to get in. I think Michigan's out. They don't have a strength of schedule worth of crap, and you lose your one biggest game. You're done. You're out. See you later. Enjoy the Rose Bowl, the Orange Bowl, whatever you want. Go enjoy it. The other one is Washington. I think Washington may lose, Dan, because like you said a few weeks ago on the show that Oregon's probably the hottest team in college football, and they've played like it. Another one, Jordan Travis, out for the season at Florida State. They got a tough game against Louisville. I'm not all there with the trap game for Florida. Florida fans can build that up as Florida may pull the upset, and they may well. But I think Louisville's the game that Florida State could go down. And a one-loss Florida State team, injury or not, out of there because their strength of schedule ain't there either. So, to me, to see a one-loss Georgia team get in, you need absolute chaos. You need Washington to lose. You need Florida State to lose, and you may even need, I don't know, maybe Michigan losing plays in your best interest because I don't think Michigan's going to get in. But yeah, we're talking about chaos here, and it's going to be here for a long time. That's why, Dan, and I'm gonna segue into this segment that I didn't put on the show sheet, but I am. There's just a part of me that just wants to say screw rivalry week. I just want to get to the dang SEC championship game because I think we all know how this Georgia Tech game is going to play out, barring an upset. But man, I just want to get it over with because we've learned everything there is to learn about this Georgia football team to this point, unless something drastic happens on Saturday. Now we just got to see what they can do if they get into a dogfight with a Bama team that, kind of similar to 2 years ago, has nothing to lose.
Right.
Nothing to lose. There is everything to gain for them to win. Georgia has a lot on the line here. So, Dan, Georgia versus Tennessee review. We're not going to talk Bama this week. We'll save Bama for next week. Whew, let's get your thoughts and reactions. If you want to pair it with Ole Miss, feel free because we did miss that show. So Dan, take just start us out. Throw a dart on the board, and we'll go there first.
I think my general overview from both games is this is, and this is not breaking news, and you've heard this plenty other places, but I think Georgia has made it clear to the world that this is an offensive football team. This is not a defensive-led football team anymore. Carson Beck has really ascended, and I was on his bandwagon to start the season. You can go back and find our shows. We don't take them down. They're on there. Before the season, I was a big believer in Carson Beck. I thought he was going to have a chance to be really, really successful. I think I did say he might throw for like 4,000 yards, which would have been crazy. And I don't think I'm going to hit that one. But he's played extremely well. Carson Beck has taken over this offense. He has taken complete control. The running back room is really rounding into shape. The wide receivers, we have so many different options and weapons. And I really felt like at the time when Brock Bowers got hurt that might actually make us a better team in the long run. I think we are starting to see a little bit of fruit of that labor. My only concern out of the last 2 weeks is Ladd McConkey. And, he's a great player, but he's been dinged up a lot the last 2 years. Well, I think it was with his back or something like that last year that kept him out of a bunch of games. This year he's missed. That's kind of the downside of being a smaller wide receiver is that you get hurt a lot. So, but we need all those weapons for Alabama. I am glad to see Georgia clicking, and I have been consistent all season long that when this Georgia team feels like there's a threat in front of it, they are going to show up. And when they don't think the other team is up to the challenge, then they don't show up, and it's a lackluster game. I would be a little bit concerned about the Georgia Tech game this weekend because nobody takes them seriously. But they have won a couple games. They are now bowl eligible, so maybe Georgia takes them a little bit seriously. But the Tennessee game was just great. I mean, obviously, giving up the touchdown on the first play of the game was not ideal. I don't believe
there were some F-bombs dropped.
I don't believe Kirby when he says that we said we're gonna let him score. I don't buy that for a damn second. But if he did do that, that shit would have been hilarious. I mean, can you imagine being in the room if he really did tell him that? Like, let's let him score. I don't believe it. But from that point on, Georgia was in complete domination mode, and I mean, the score 38-10 may not sound like it, but that's like Kirby doesn't like to run the score up on people.
Only Brian Kelly and LSU.
Yeah, but that's 38-10. He put it to him, and he could have put it to him worse. And I was all for it, but I was extremely impressed with how they played against Ole Miss. And you knew they were going to be motivated to play Ole Miss because Kirby and Lane are friends, competitive friends, and they jab at each other. But it's playful, like they do get along. I mean, Kirby has made it known multiple times that they have a private chat between the two of them where they text each other back and forth. And I laughed because whenever people said that stuff, that Lane posted that picture of Saban holding Kirby as a baby and it says Happy Father's Day or whatever. And Kirby's like, yeah, dude, he sends me stuff like that in our private chat all the time. So it's like, whatever. But so I knew he would have something for Lane. And I was glad to see him put it on Tennessee. And, when I was a kid, I didn't hate Tennessee. But as I get older, I hate Tennessee because they're fans.
Twitter, man.
Yeah,
it's because of Twitter.
You're 100% right. It's because of Twitter. Those freaking morons. My good. Like, go back to your shanties.
It's crazy to see them come alive because they could not be found. They were AWOL after the Missouri loss, just completely gone. And they came alive at the end of the week saying, yeah, I think, call me insane. You're insane. We're going to upset Georgia. That was the talk. That was it. They kind of came alive, and they actually had belief in that football game. And I'm sure that 75-yard touchdown that Georgia gave hope, it was almost like stealing candy from a baby. Like, you gave them so much hope that they're going to be in that football game, and then you take it all away. Dan, here's where I'm at. We'll watch a Georgia football game now. To me, it's like, obviously I watched it with some friends, and I'm like, oh, crap, we're going to have a football game. And then I said, hold on, guys. I said, hold on. Georgia goes out the first drive, and they score. And I'm like, Georgia's fine. Like, Georgia's fine. Same thing with Ole Miss. When Georgia came out and drove on their first drive, and they scored quickly, it's a wrap. Just instant sigh of relief, instant feel of relief that Georgia's go out and play a football game because for the first time, I think, since I've been watching, and definitely under Kirby Smart, this is an offensive football team, as Dan said. I don't think there's a team in college football that can stop Georgia right now on defense. There's a lot of good defenses, but you're not only are you going to have to stop Georgia, you're going to have to score on Georgia, and that may be easier said than done compared to years past this year. But Dan, am I wrong to say a part of me, and this may just be recency bias, I didn't think this 2 weeks ago after Missouri, but I've thought about it now. There's something to this team that just makes me say this is the most balanced Georgia team that we've seen over the last 3 years. And that's crazy to say because 2021, all-time defense. 2022, you had a really good offense with what I would say was elite defense. 2023, your defense is good. Still one of the top 10, top 5 units of the country, but you got like a top 1% offense now. And it just feels balanced, like really, really balanced.
You talking about the offense feels balanced or the team itself?
Just the whole team. The
So
whole team feels
I don't feel that way. Last year I felt like it was a balance. I felt like last year the offense and the defense pulled the same weight. The offense could score on anybody, but the defense could stop anybody. It's like they could put up there. But this year I feel like and we don't have a lot to go on, guys. We honestly don't because we haven't really had that game that's really going to put it on the line for us. But I feel like this offense will score no matter what. But I do feel like this defense is going to give up points if it has, if we play a really good football team, like if we played Ohio State or Alabama, which we're going, probably going to play both of them, we're going to give up points. So this offense is going to have to carry us. I don't think this defense has the ability to shut down an elite team the way the other ones did. I want to be wrong. And if we are wrong, I'll be the first one to say, hey, I was wrong. This defense is elite and they stopped everybody. I just don't know
and
that
he'll
they
do
have.
it with a bottle of champagne in hand.
Hell yes. Hell, I want to be wrong. I don't know that they're as good as the last couple of years. Like, I think the balance on the defense is there, right? I think the talent is there to go around, but we don't have an all-time dominant defensive line. We're not getting the quarterback the way that we were. I do think we cover pretty well considering. I think the offense is Sacred. What are you talking about there? Third down. You talking about defensively third down, or are you talking about offensively third down? Because we are elite.
Both. They're
Okay.
number one
Okay.
in both, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, I got you. Yeah,
Which is crazy. I don't think that's ever happened.
On offense, it's sick, bro. Like they get first downs on third downs like Oprah Winfrey. Like you get a first down and you get a first down and you get because it's like, whoo, son. Yeah, this offense to be like, I don't buy into the 100% balance, Harrison. I say it's like where the offense is like 60%, 40% defense. And I think that's the first time. No, I don't think that's the first time in this Kirby era you could say that the offense is taking a step forward.
Absolutely, and it's what's scary, Dan, is you could get a whole nother year of Carson Beck at quarterback because he's been. And hey,
Can we talk about that?
Yeah,
can we talk about that?
Let's talk about it.
Because
the dude is balling.
Because like a lot of your prognosticators now have him being the third quarterback off the board, which we know 3 to 4 quarterbacks are going to go in the first round. If you're going to get a first round evaluation at quarterback, you go. You just do. You go. And I mean, even if you get like a second round evaluation, you kind of got to go because you never know what could happen. Look at what I mean. Maybe Caleb Williams is so good that it doesn't affect him, but like Caleb Williams has raised a lot more questions. And then remember, Drake May was a big, hot name last year at the end of the season. When's the last time you heard anybody talk about Drake May? Look at Jordan Travis. Wait, is that his name? Jordan Travis, the quarterback of Florida State?
FSU quarterback? Yep.
Yeah. I mean, listen, he had to come back, okay? But I mean, that guy was tearing the world apart, and then he gets hurt. Bo Nix obviously had to come back and make it whatever. But, I mean, look at the quarterbacks I'm talking about. Do any of them, would you take any of them over Carson Beck right now? Because put college aside. Because there are guys like Bo Nix can have a hell of a college career, but they just don't translate, right? Like Stetson Bennett. You would take Stetson Bennett on your college football team all day long. You take Aaron Murray on your college football team all day long. But do you want him as your NFL quarterback? So I'm telling you, bro, Carson Beck, he's 6'5", 215 pounds. Can throw. I mean, can you make an argument that there's anybody that throws a better ball than he does right now? Because we are seeing NFL throw after NFL throw after NFL throw, tight window throw, anticipation throw, perfect ball position throws. The only advantage that you would give to somebody like Shedeur Sanders or Caleb Williams is what? Mobility, right? But I think Caleb. I think. Yeah, but I think Beck is. I think Beck has showed us that he is way more athletic than people thought he was. Sacred, I'm with you 100%. I believe Carson Beck is a NFL caliber product. And if he gets the evaluation that says he's a first round pick or maybe even second round pick, if I was his father or if I was in his camp, I would be like, dude, go because you're ready. Unless he's just, I mean, listen, if he doesn't win a national championship, he may want to come back because he wants to get his, and you cannot argue with that. I mean, that's a personal thing, right? None of us have been in that position. But if he gets a national championship, bro, you got to go, right?
Yeah. I mean, to me, the whole thing with Carson is the way I look at it. I think arm strength wise, I think I put him right up there with everybody else in terms of he can make all the throws. When it comes to arm talent, which is the ability to make throws off platform, I think maybe he's probably second or third. I think he's top 5. I wouldn't put him number 1 because obviously Caleb Williams. There was a throw he made the other weekend, this past weekend, where he's steps up in the pocket, or I don't want to say steps up because it's not a step. It's almost like he's about to scramble. Then he looks downfield and he says, "Oh crap, there's a guy open," and he just he just runs into a throw. He just runs and launches it downfield behind the line of scrimmage as he's getting hit, and I was like, "Whoa, that's a ball." But yeah, I think he's up there. And then we talk about his mental and his technique, his mechanics. He, like you said, he's ready to go. I mean, there's a play against Tennessee where he's looking off DBs. He's making DBs go where he wants so he can make an insane throw to Brock Bowers, which is dropped, which is crazy to say. Brock Bowers dropped a pass or didn't make the play you thought he would. But it was Carson Beck that opened it up for him. So I think, yeah, like you said, he looks like an NFL quarterback already. Made a lot of NFL throws on Saturday. I think his best third in, and what I think he's going to get Alabama with, which is what I was watching tape of Texas versus Alabama, and not to mention Alabama blew a lot of assignments and coverage early in that football game. I think I'm about 25 plays in, and they blew some coverages, but they were a cover 3 football team that game. Texas exploited their cover 3 coverages and did a great job, and it was with the deep over. Had a lot of deep overs. I think that's Carson's best throw, which I think is going to translate when he's facing these teams because, I mean, he has destroyed, and I mean destroyed teams that want to sit in zone against him because he's an elite processor. Like, we're talking face to the defense, Bryce Young, Joe Burrow type processing, and I'm not putting him up there with Joe Burrow because Joe Burrow, that's what he does best is process the defense, and he's able to make the throws, but I think that's also what Carson Beck is doing, maybe on a smaller level.
Why couldn't you put him up there with Joe Burrow? What has Joe Burrow done that Carson hasn't done? I mean, listen, they had more weapons. Like they had a different type of offense that was going to throw it way more. But I mean, if you go look at Joe Burrow as a junior, was not impressive, right? That was his first year starting. Carson Beck, this is his first year starting. His first year starting with less weapons is far more impressive to me than what Joe Burrow did the first year. Now, correct. His second year, his senior season, that is one for the history books. That is one of the greatest seasons we'll ever see, right?
And but you got to compare 14 type numbers.
Yeah, you got to compare apples to apples, and the apples would be that was Joe Burrow's first year, his junior year starting, and they called him a game manager. I think he had 16 touchdowns. So, I mean, to me, Carson Beck has done more with less, and more, and like so listening to the conversation, Hudson Mason and all the other guys were talking to him, Joe Hamilton and everybody. Hudson said that the only real argument you can make for him coming back would be one of two things. One, that he wants to win either a national championship or another national championship, but then more importantly, that NFL GMs need to see more tape. So it would be a difference of having, let's say 15 games worth of tape versus having 30 games worth of tape or 27 games worth of tape, whatever the case may be, where, a NFL GM may have to convince his owner that, this is the guy I want, and there's just not enough, right? So that's the only real argument or pushback that you might get with Carson Beck is there's not enough tape, where a lot of these other guys have more tape. But I don't buy that either because Daniel Jones, I don't believe wait, no, it wasn't Daniel Jones. That's not what I'm thinking. It was who's the quarterback that was it North Carolina?
I got you. Here's the thing, Dan, and I know where you're going with this.
The UNC
what
quarterback.
You're about to say, what you're about to say, the thing was Mr. Trubisky you're thinking about.
Yeah.
But there's two more. I got two more examples. What you're about to say, and this is what I'm going to say real quick. I'm going to list some names here: Mac Jones, Trey Lance, and I think Mitch Trubisky. I think they all played less than 30 games. And have any of them had any success? I know Mac Jones had a great Pro Bowl rookie year, and I wouldn't say it was great. But I think those guys have ruined the NFL, have put the NFL off of taking these less than 30 game quarterbacks out of college, because Mac Jones, he's going to be out of a starting job potentially this week. Probably not going to have a starting job next year. He's going to end up on the San Francisco 49ers, going to be the third string quarterback, is what I'm predicting. You got Trey Lance, third string quarterback on the Dallas Cowboys, didn't do much. Mitch Trubisky, he's the backup quarterback in Pittsburgh, hasn't done much. So I think those guys have ruined it for guys like Carson Beck, because 4 years ago, I think if Carson's having the season he has now, there's no question he's leaving. But yeah, Kyle Trask. Now, obviously, he was a 4th round pick, I believe he was. But I think that has ruined Carson's chances of saying, yeah, he's a no doubt first round pick, because I think there is a want for more tape here.
So I wonder if it does change it at all. The fact that he's been in the same program for, if I'm not mistaken, isn't this his 4th year in the program?
Yes, he joined in 2020. It was his first year.
Yeah. So this will be his 4th year in the program. So
yeah.
So I mean, that I wonder if that changes anything, because he's been there, is being developed or whatever. I don't know, but anyway,
and he's in the NFL playbook after all.
We completely got off topic, but I mean, we didn't really have anything else. But
I mean, no, I think this was topic we had to hit, because it's been going around.
But listen, I see both sides of, like, selfishly, it would be cool to have him back because he's really, really talented. But that quarterback room completely explodes if he comes back. It has to. And this isn't the damn good dog conversation anymore, because it just has to. Like, if he comes back, Brock has to leave. He has to. He's out of, he's got 1 year after that?
Something like.
So, I mean, Harrison's mic is gone again. Anyway, my whole point is, like, so you can throw it doesn't come down to he's not a good dog, not willing to wait his turn anymore. This is a situation where you've forced his hand now, where if Beck comes back, Brock has to leave. He has to go somewhere to go play, because otherwise he'll only have a year, an opportunity to play for 1 year. There's no separation, and then you've got Raiola coming in, and then you possibly have Juju Lewis coming in. It just, it does completely shake up that room. But at the end of the day, does it really matter? Like, that doesn't matter to me, because Georgia's going to go get the next guy anyway. Like, and I know Brock, so I want him to do well, but at the same time, Beck won the job, and he's the guy.
I mean,
it's his job.
That's what it is. I mean, when a guy comes back like that, obviously people will leave. Obviously, I think. I won't speculate on that. We'll just move on from that. But anyways, there will be ramifications for guys coming back, just like there would for any other position. I'm trying to think of something else, that another position that may have saw a guy leave, someone coming back, but I can't think of it right now. But yeah, I mean, obviously there's going to be that. Real quick, Dan, I do want to give credit where credit is due. Tyke Smith, you're a bad man. You are a bad man. And specifically, Tyke Smith, Javon Bullard, Malachi Starks. I mean, we're talking about a safety trio here that has been going off this year. Maybe not statistically, but when you go watch them, those guys make plays over and over and over again. And to me, those are the 3 best players in Georgia's defense. And I wouldn't say by a long shot, but it's pretty wide. I mean, those guys stand out play after play after play. Tyke Smith blowing up screens, blowing up slants. I mean, it is impressive what he's doing. His ball skills have been there. Talk about Javon Bullard and Malachi Starks. Those 3 guys are the surest of tacklers. When those guys are there, if they're in arm's reach, they're bringing you to the ground, it feels like. CJ Allen, hell of a performance from the true freshman linebacker. I feel really good about that room over there for a long player, for a long time. Because, I mean, shoot, you're just going to keep churning them and churning them and churning them, even though you're putting out NFL guys.
And, I think you gave some shout outs to the guys on the defensive side. Marcus Rosemy-Jacksaint, dude, could not be happier for a guy. I mean, his ascension into that Florida game when he broke his ankle, he was playing really, really well. And, he kind of got buried a little bit. I mean, obviously he had to rehab, he had to recover, had to come back, and he kind of got buried a little bit. He started earning some playing time. He would flash and make plays. He has become a real weapon. And I'm not talking about like a guy who can just make a catch here and there. I'm talking about he's become a real weapon. He's become a third down guy. He's made some really good, tough catches. He's become somebody we can count on. Dillon Bell has been as close to Hines Ward as you can get. Now, look, they look nothing alike body-wise, but Georgia's using him in a very similar way to way. And I know a lot of you guys don't remember, but with Hines Ward, he could do whatever you wanted to. He could play quarterback, running back, wide receiver, return kicks, whatever. Dillon Bell has done everything. He has been the jack of all trades for this Georgia football team. In my opinion, he's really filled that role of what Kenny McIntosh did so well. And that was the one thing that we have. I think we all had a little bit of a concern as to how we were going to replace McIntosh because he could do so many different things. And I think Dillon Bell has done that extremely well. And again, Marcus Rosemy-Jacksaint, really, really awesome. And then Ra Thomas has really kind of filled that A.D. Mitchell role where he makes some hellified plays, dude. Like some eye-popping plays. I mean, Lovett, Dominic Lovett, a contributor. Just that offensive
Yak demon,
huh? Yak demon.
He's a yak demon.
Listen, the one guy that I completely almost forgot was on the roster was Arian Smith. On the end around that he took for what I think it was like 30 yards or something like that. I was like, oh shit, yeah, he's still on our team. I mean, he's been here forever, but we don't use him enough.
Yeah. And I don't think it's because you don't use. I think it's just because you have so many guys that are big time players for you now that he's just kind of gotten buried in the depth chart. I still wouldn't mind seeing him out there every time I do see him against. Yesterday when I was watching the game, I see him on the field and he's at the. Wherever he's at, I'm like, oh, shoot, are they going to do the post play again? Are they going to give him a deep shot? Like, just send that guy downfield. I saw the clip the other day today. Brent Rollins, despite him playing one play, Ladd McConkey still cooked a DB. I'm talking about cooked. Got like 5 yards separation on a deep ball. Yeah, not even. Let me see if I can find it. Just absolutely just stacked the guy on like it was a 9 route, I believe it was. But gave him a little shimmy, and man, if we were looking that way, it was a touchdown. Here we go. I found it already. Shout out to the bookmarks on Twitter. Great thing, great invention for whoever did that. Just can easily find something. He's gonna be down here to the bottom of the screen. Just watch him cook. Oh my God.
So he played 2 plays then.
Was it 2 or 1? I forget. He played very limited.
Because I heard that the only route he ran was a hitch with Brock running a corner over the top of it. So he must be. Okay. It had to have been 2 plays.
It was 2. Yep. And he absolutely cooked that guy. Like just absolutely took the top off the guy. And I think that's Dan. Last thing, because I know we got things to do, so we do got to get off here. But the receiving group is the one, as I think now become the strength of this offense. You have strength in numbers now when you have Dillon Bell, Marcus Rosemy-Jacksaint, Ladd McConkey when healthy, Dominic Lovett, Ra Thomas. I'm going to put Brock in there because Brock's obviously a receiver. You have Brock Bowers. All these guys, you have a list of guys that you can trust to make plays. And then you got guys behind them that can give you a spark play when you need one. Arian Smith. I'm blanking on the other guy's name. 18.
Yeah. I know. What's his name? Dang it, boy. Anyway, but you can't even start there, Harrison. You have to give credit to the offensive line. They're starting to get healthy, and they've really gelled, and they put it together. You remember how disappointed we were in that offensive line to start the season? And in the Ole Miss game, Carson Beck does not get touched. Brian Finnering goes on the radio making fun of Carson Beck, talking about he's a 7-on-7 quarterback because he never has any pressure and he just gets to pick people apart. And then he gets touched, twice in the Tennessee game? He only got touched twice. If I'm not,
and they're the best pass rush in the league by metrics. They are the best pass rush in the league.
If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I believe it was twice he got touched. So in 2 football games, your quarterback got touched 2 times? And it wasn't like we threw the ball 2 times. Elite. It doesn't matter who the hell your wide receivers are, because if your quarterback can stand there for 10 hours and make a decision to throw the football, you're going to cook people. So I think the greatest improvement that we've seen from game 1 to game 12 or whatever on this football team is the offensive line. They are peaking at the right time.
Absolutely. And I do want to say this because you bring up a good point. He does have a long time to throw, but when they do bring the heat, when he's under fire, it has not affected him. We have not seen one bad turnover created by pressure. We've seen some decision maybe wants back in the last 3 games, but we're talking about Missouri, Ole Miss, and Tennessee. All 3 have brought heat, and I mean have sent people at him. Missouri specifically sent 6 or 7 people at times, just right after him trying to fluster him. Tennessee tried to do the same. They hit him, I think, one time pretty good. Didn't fluster him at all. I mean, he is standing in the pocket and he's delivering when he's under fire. And I think that's what teams are going to try and figure out is I think they're going to try and rattle him. But he is nothing but cool, calm, and collected in the pocket. Cool, calm, and collected in the pocket. And that's why they've been so successful offensively. I'm not going to come out here and say, Dan, that he needs to win the Heisman Trophy. But it is a shame if he's not in New York. Because I know what Jaden Daniels is doing out there in Baton Rouge. He's putting up unholy numbers out there, like great numbers, and he deserves to get the credit for it. Bo Nix putting up good numbers. Carson Beck doesn't necessarily have the touchdowns. I think what people forget about, not only is the Heisman about your yards you get, it's also about the touchdowns you get. And right now, I think Carson Beck's at 21, which isn't quite enough, in my opinion, to win one when you got guys like Jaden Daniels who are sitting at 30 or 40 touchdowns. But anyways, Dan, you got anything to add before we wrap up?
No, I really don't, buddy. I just I say Rec Tech, right? Everybody, happy Thanksgiving. Thank you for joining our show every single week. We really appreciate you, whether it's 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever amount of time you give us. It means a lot to us that you guys show up every single week and every single time. We hope that we give you a little bit of an enjoyment. Maybe a break. We're not maybe as serious as some other people. We don't take ourselves as serious as maybe some other people. So we really enjoy you guys. So I just wanted to take a second and say happy Thanksgiving to everybody, and we really, really appreciate you.
What he said, absolutely what he said. Yeah, they want to see 40. I was gonna say something, then I forgot. But I think Dan covered it all there. And anyways, folks, episode 109 of the Top Dog Talk podcast. Oh, that's what it is. Thank you for showing up when I didn't announce the shows at a new start time until maybe like 10 minutes before. So we really do appreciate that, because I was going to come in here and tell Dan, I was like, yo, Dan, don't look at the live count because it's going to be dog water. But hey,
good show.
We've had people with us, and people have been chatting with us all show long. We appreciate you. We'll see you next Tuesday, hopefully 7:30, but I will let you know in advance if it's not. Appreciate you. See you again next week, boys and girls.
Go Dogs.